What is up, and welcome back to Beyond the Arc with Brandon Silvers. As always, I am your host, Brandon Silvers. This is one of my favorite times of year, March Madness. I could not talk about it alone. So as always, when I need someone to cover college stuff and making picks, I bring in Brett Gosnell. Brett, how's it going?
How you doing? Very, very excited.
Yes. So for me, like, part of the appeal of March Madness is it's a huge nostalgia factor. Like, I can remember when I was first aware of what March Madness was, kind of, and you would just be going to school and you'd show up after school and there was just basketball on TV. And you're like, this is fucking awesome. And watching the SEC tournament with like former Gamecocks, BJ Mackey, Melvin Watson, then Auburn. I remember they had a guy, Chris Porter, with a huge afro, and Mississippi State was really good with a guy named Dante Jones. And then moving on to the NCAA tournament, like, one of my earliest memories is the Bryce Drew shot to beat Ole Miss for Valpo against Ole Miss. So I'm a huge nostalgia guy, but there's several different reasons why I love it. But what are some of your early memories of March Madness, and what do you love about March Madness?
So, yeah, good shout on the school thing. I remember junior high and high school just being obsessed with it, and everybody at school was too. Some teachers would even roll the TV, the TV on the cart. They would roll the TV in and let us watch the games in biology class or whatever. So you had some cool teachers like that. I mean, when it was going on, that's the only topic of conversation at school. 1 year, South Carolina was a 7 seed and got knocked out by the 10 seed Memphis. I'm thinking that's right. My mom got me and my friend out of school, said we were sick so we could be home to watch that game because it was a noon game, I'm pretty sure. And we got beat first round, of course. And then I think we went back for baseball practice. But
we healed.
Yeah. So, yeah, just those are really some of my best memories of March Madness as well. Just taking over the school, and that's all anybody's talking about.
Especially here, like elementary school, College of Charleston, like, they're in the tournament this year, but they were like Gonzaga before Gonzaga back in the day, in the mid to late 90s, going to the tournament. So it was a huge thing here in Charleston for, like, we got to see what the Cougs are going to do, the Cinderella upset team and all that. So with them being back in it this year, that's kind of getting those old feelings and also making me feel terribly old at the same time. So,
yeah. And I grew up in South Carolina, but 1 mile from the North Carolina border. So we had a lot of Duke and UNC interest as well, who were always in the tournament. Of course, when South Carolina or Clemson was in it, it was, through the roof excitement. And nowadays, Furman, they're in it. Obviously, College of Charleston is back. So the state is getting represented again here.
Finally. It's been a long time. Yeah. It's our Gamecock Final Four run on the men's side. Any names that come to mind when you think of old school March Madness? I think I've got one that will get your attention if you can't think of one.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll come up with one, but go ahead and give me yours.
I'm going to say Kevin Pittsnogle.
Oh, my. Wow. Okay. Well, you might even want to cut this shit out because I'm going to go for an hour on this. We, as mountain redneck white kids, which I and most of my people around me were, adored Kevin Pittsnogle and Steve Gansey, Mike Gansey, his point guard. I wrote a full multiple page myth story about how Kevin Pittsnogle was born in a manger and Mike Gansey traveled like a three wise man dude because he followed a star from Ohio to West Virginia and they were destined to be together. West Virginia native chivalry is what we called their gallantry and their bravery as they went into the tournament every year. just made up shit. But we idolized the Pit Snoggles and the Ganseys where I'm from.
That's beautiful that you did the
I totally
official
forgot about all that.
Kevin Pittsnoggle biography.
Yes. Oh my God.
I really just wanted to bring that name just because I knew I've mentioned it before and I've seen your face light up. So that's really why I led the whole show off the way that I did. So
that is fantastic.
Moving on, what outside of nostalgia and the Kevin Pittsnoggle origin story draws you to March Madness?
Okay, so the obvious answer to why everybody loves it is the format. Every single team playing in every single game you watch, it's a win or go home. There's nothing else like this in all of sports, really. I mean, I guess NFL playoffs, it's win or go home, but like how many teams have they let in now? 8, 10?
Yeah. This is like huge.
Yeah, they're letting really 68 teams into this. Everybody's win or go home. So every single game you're watching is life or death every time. And everybody technically speaking, everybody's got an equal chance. Like Norfolk State here. I'm looking at the women's here. Norfolk State has an equal chance to win it as Dawn Staley's Gamecocks. They don't, but technically speaking, they have to do the same thing. Yeah. So, there's really nothing else like it. College football playoffs. I mean, it's win or go home, but they let 4 teams in. I guess it'll be 8 soon. College baseball uses a similar format to this, but it's series. There's a best 2 out of 3 one weekend. The first weekend's a double elimination, College World Series double elimination. There ain't none of that shit here, man. It is all win or go home the whole time. I mean, it's just an amazing event. It's not the best way to determine who the best team is by any stretch of the imagination, but it is the funnest way.
Yes, and that's what's important. And I think that what separates it from like the NFL playoffs or the college football playoff is the fact that you have these small guys in too. And as people, we all think we're the underdog. We identify with the underdog. And so the fact that there can be a Cinderella run really draws you in. And just thinking kind of like Norfolk State has an equal chance as the South Carolina Lady Gamecocks.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing like that. And I actually prefer the small conference tournaments to the larger ones for the very same reason. Like that's win or go home too.
Yep. Yeah, it is. Absolutely. Yeah. There's nothing like it. I mean, I had a point I was going to make, but yeah, there's certainly nothing like it. And this is what I was going to say. You talk about the underdog runs, like an underdog never wins it all, really. I mean, what's the lowest seed ever we've seen when it's, I think, an 8 or a 9, but
yeah,
that was crazy in and of itself. But one of these tiny schools inevitably makes a deep run. I mean, every year there's a St. Joseph's. Last year was a 15 seed, were they not? Oral Roberts, I think, went on an Elite 8 run as a 12 or something seed. George Mason back in the day made the Final Four. Every year, it seems there is one of these double-digit seeds that makes you think they can win it all. There's a period where you like they legitimately have a shot here.
And then you can kind of feel everyone start rooting for them, unless, of course, you're playing your team. Because I remember Florida Gulf Coast.
That was another one, yeah.
Like they were just dunking everything. They were a fun team to watch, or even you don't think of him as an underdog now, but Steph Curry at Davidson.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember betting on him a lot as a 10 seed. Yeah, they knocked out Ohio State one year as a 10 seed, didn't they? 10 versus 2.
I believe so. And they almost beat Kansas, and he passed up the game-winning shot, and I freaked out.
Yeah.
I freaked out. He should have kicked it at the hoop.
Yeah. But yeah, like who knows? I have no clue who it's going to be this year, but like, yeah, it's most likely it's going to be somebody. There's going to be some team that you did not expect to at least get to the Elite Eight.
And so, and you just don't see that. Like college football, it would be like if the Citadel played Bama in the first round of the playoffs. And
yeah, and they'd get smoked. Like they would just the physicality just would not allow that to be a close game. But in basketball, it can happen. You know, a team gets to hitting their threes or whatever. You know, it's not like you can physically body slam the other team. You know, I mean, that
would be something.
Yeah. So yeah, the sport lends itself to upsets a little bit, and certainly this format makes the upsets matter, makes it life or death. So yeah, the format clearly is go ahead.
No, so I was going to ask, like, speaking of the format, how much of it is okay, we get to watch this format, but also with the bracket we get to pick this format and be the geniuses.
So that's to me, that's the less obvious, but the bigger reason why this tournament is so beloved. So I'm a firm believer in that in order to truly enjoy a sporting event, you have to have a stake in it. Either you're watching a team that you're a fan of, or you've bet it and you've got money on it, or you've just got some reason to pull for the team. I don't do a whole lot of watching games as a neutral. You know, like the Super Bowl, I bet it, so I'm not a neutral there. Maybe like a World Cup game or something, and I even bet those unsuccessfully. I don't do a lot of watching games. It's just I don't care who wins, you know, and I don't understand how people do that. I think in order to enjoy a game, you've got to have a rooting interest. So with this tournament, everybody's got a rooting interest because everybody's filled out a bracket, you know, and whether you're doing it for money or not, that makes you invested and you care about that team, whether it's like you said, just to show that you're smart because you picked the 12 over the 5 or whatever, or you've got money on that, you're at a office pool or whatever, you know, there's some money on the line. This tournament is like the thing that everybody has a stake in. And I think that's the biggest reason why it's so beloved is everybody's pulling for somebody. Every game you watch, you're pulling for somebody.
Yes. And so there are many different ways that people fill out their brackets, many different strategies. Here on Beyond the Arc with Brandon Silvers, we have set out to determine the best bracket picking strategy. I've assembled a team of experts along with Brett. We're going to go through Brett's strategy as well as the experts, their qualifications. I hope to have some of them on as well so we can question them. But let's start the first ever Beyond the Arc with Brandon Silvers bracket strategy experiment. Okay, so how are we going to determine the best strategy? Well, we're going to do men's brackets, women's brackets, and we've got a team of experts, as I mentioned, outside of just Brett. First up, me, self-appointed expert. You're welcome. Next up, if you follow me on YouTube, you know my dog Kobe makes weekly NFL picks on his own show called Beyond the Bark. Very creative name. He's made a bracket. If we're going to have an animal, we must also have an animal expert. Our dear friend Petey owns and operates Morris Island Charters, where he does boat tours. If you're interested in seeing nature, he's going to fill that role for us. He's a former award-winning horse show person, whatever that's called. He has a degree in biology. He loves birds. He recently gifted me 24 eggs, one of which was the biggest one I've ever seen. I'll post a pic. Brett grew up with him. He has more information on Petey's animal expertise. Brett, take it away.
All right, so a quick story to demonstrate just how this man feels about animals. So place yourself in a middle school geography classroom in a very small, very conservative southern town. And we're talking about rainforest deforestation. And we're talking about all the animals that get displaced, all the trees that get cut down, this and that. PD, a very reclusive, not saying a word type child at this time, has not said a word all year in this class, has just sit at his desk silently. A student pops up and says, well, I'm sorry for I hate that this rainforest stuff's happening, but the people of Brazil or wherever they've got to live, and humans are more important than animals. A fire lit under this man, and he banged his desk and said, no, we're not. And I think that was all he said all year.
That is beautiful. PD does have sports knowledge, but he has roughly zero college basketball knowledge. I gave him a bracket containing just the mascots. He has to determine scientifically which mascot would win in a 5-on-5 battle that mirrors basketball, but is really just a fight to the death. We've also got Coach Herbert Johnson of the Herbert Johnson Track and Field Academy, championship coaching experience on all levels, all the way up to Olympic silver medalist Raven Saunders. Can he, with his eye for athletic talent, pick a winner, or will whatever has made him a New York Giants fan trip him up along the way? We've got all these experts. If you're an expert, hit me up. Come on. I'm going to try to have all of these experts on. I've got a couple I'm holding back as well. Just to give you an example, though, told you all of them. Brett, you are the expert here with me today. What is your bracket picking strategy?
All right. So if you listened to the first part of today's broadcast, I mentioned that I don't do a lot of watching games as a neutral. So given that South Carolina men's basketball was horrible this year, I didn't watch a whole lot of college basketball on the men's side. The women's were fantastic, so I did watch them. So on the men's side, I'm going to show you by sharing my screen exactly how I make my picks.
While Brett is working on his audio issues, I will say my own strategy. I just think that I'm very smart, and so I make picks based on that and my gut feelings. Brett, do we have you back?
I think so. You hear me?
Yes.
All right. So, do you see this beautiful screen here?
It is nice.
All right. This is 538. You may think of them as a political website. You may only look at them around election time every year. But the best work that Nate Silver and company do is with the March Madness NCAA tournament bracket every year. I simply have to move my mouse over a team, and I get the percentage chance of them to make it to every round. So that is how I fill my bracket out. Nothing more, nothing less. The only thing you need to look out for, this doesn't factor in injuries. But it does do a lot better job of what a human eyeball would do of looking at every metric, looking at every strength of schedule, everything you can think of to give you a percentage chance of each team advancing. So the interesting thing I want to point out, and I hope this doesn't take away any of the allure of the tournament for a lot of people, but our favorite thing to see are upsets, right? So a lot of the time, what you think of as an upset really isn't. And this will tell you that. And so will the betting odds, which we'll talk about later today. So, for instance, this is one of my favorite plays. A 10-7, Utah State versus Missouri. Utah State is a 64% chance to win that game as the lower seed.
Wow.
So a huge favorite there, the lower seed. So that is not an upset at all when that happens. I hope it's a win. Another one down here, Boise's a 59% chance to advance as the 10 seed. The 12 and 5, that's the classic upset. You see this one, VCU they're a dog, but 41%. I mean, that's close to a coin flip. Drake's also at 41%. So these are not big upsets here. These 12 versus 5s, and this one would be. Our beloved Charleston, they've got a 1 in 3 shot of winning, so it'd be a solid upset, but nothing out of the realm of possibility.
Man, I've seen a lot of talk about Furman in Virginia.
Yep. So
that's a 4-13, but can Furman pull it off?
Yeah, Furman, they've got a better than a 1 in 4 chance. The spread on that game is only 5.5 points. I mean, so this is going to be a close game. So, like I say, a lot of these upsets are not as big of upsets as you think they are.
Well, I want to check this versus Kobe's bracket real quick.
Okay.
So, for those of you who don't watch Beyond the Bark, I lay down a treat on a note card containing each team for the NFL picks, and Kobe, whichever treat he picks first is the pick. And I switch it up so he's not just picking like left side over and over again. So that's what we replicated for this as well. I'm gonna read you his final four, and I want you to see if you can pick out where this went from human to dog. where like which of these final four picks would make you think a dog picked this? So he's got Houston.
Okay.
He's got UCLA.
Not bad.
Let's see, what are they looking at? Okay, not his best pick, but not terrible, and a true traditional blue blood. He's got Kentucky.
All right, I've got UCLA getting to the Final Four. I've got Houston. Wow, he's very reasonable.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you said Kentucky.
Yeah.
6 seed. All right.
Not terrible. And he's got Furman.
Uh-oh. So, yeah, there you go.
So I want to explain, because I was trying to figure out, because I do watch a lot of games casually, and he watches them with me. And so he made me so proud with 3 picks, and I was trying to figure out where'd the Furman pick come from. And I was thinking about it all morning. If you break the word Furman apart, Fur-man.
Yeah.
I think he thought he was picking a dog.
Yeah. So they have a 1% chance to just make the Elite 8. Less than 1% chance to win the whole tournament. Less than 1% chance to get to the Final Four. So we'll call that a 0.5% chance. I'm going to try to calculate really quick the odds of him being exactly right here. So we're going to say a 0.5% the Furman, which is probably less than that. 10% for Kentucky.
I should have never let him watch Air Bud.
So let's see. UCLA is going to have a 21%, 22% chance. And Houston to make the Final Four is going to have a nice 41% chance. Wow.
And he's got Houston winning it all, too.
Okay, so that's reasonable. That's actually the betting favorite. That is who is expected to win. This is the number that we come up with of the odds of that happening. I don't know how to translate that to a percentage.
What is it in dog percents?
There you
Multiply
go.
it by 7.
Yeah. I think it got bigger. I can't tell. I think we lost a 0.
There we go. So you're saying there's a chance.
Yeah.
So that's your strategy as compared to Kobe's. Are there any times when you look at that and you're just like, I'm going to pick with my gut here and not trust Nate Silver?
There is one. It is very rare that I trust myself more than Nate Silver. But Arkansas and Illinois. Illinois has been a darling of 538 the past several years and has cost me a lot of money because they suck. He has them as a 52% chance to beat Arkansas. I'm probably going to be not only not betting Illinois, I think I'm going to bet Arkansas. Illinois has just let me down so many times the past 2 years. And I was just informed this morning, I'm not going to get this exactly right, but there is a team in this tournament that has like 2 of the top 5 players in the country. I'm thinking of like the NBA draft rankings. And then like if you expand to like the top 50 players, they've got 4 within the top 50. And this team made 2 Elite Eights the past 2 years. That team is Arkansas.
Jesus. I would have lost a lot of money on that.
Yeah, I was stunned when I heard this. So yeah, it's safe to say I'm going to be taking them over Brad Underwood's Illinois squad.
I've got them as well, and Kobe has them making a nice little Elite Eight run.
Wow, 3 in a row.
So he's he knows what he's doing.
He does.
How about on the women's side? I'm assuming you use the same strategy, but let's see. I've got a feeling I know what Nate is going to say as far as his calculator.
So I will not share my screen again, but I will tell you the Houston, like we said, was the favorite on the men's side. They have a 22% chance to win the whole thing. So that's less than 1 out of 4. The favorite has a less than 1 out of 4 chance on the men's side. The women, South Carolina has a 64% chance to win the tournament. That is just an overwhelming, dominant favorite.
And that, as we mentioned, we're both Gamecock fans. And I got to go to the senior day game and watch them against Georgia. Can anyone beat them? I guess is the better question than can they win? I mean, would you take Carolina or the field?
Carolina, no question about it. Okay, so I've unmuted myself. I'm sharing my screen again. So yeah, let's look at this. Yeah, like I say, look, I mean, they've got a 91% chance to make the Final Four. I mean, that's just crazy. So the first time they're going to run into anything like trouble is going to be Stanford. Their odds when Stanford shows up goes from 91% to 76%.
And that would be one of the teams that would scare me.
Yeah, we played it. We went to Stanford and won this year, but Stanford was better for a chunk of that game. It was definitely a scare for sure. The game went to overtime. But when they match up, it's saying South Carolina has an 81% chance to beat Stanford on a neutral site.
That is incredible because I know Stanford's got Cameron Brink, who's had an incredible season. She's averaging 15 and 10 with 3.5 blocks. Haley Jones is still there. She does everything at a high level except shoot. That's a really good team. That's probably the number one team that scares me.
South Carolina's got an 82% chance to beat Indiana.
Yeah, they've had an incredible season, but I'm going to have to see it to believe it with them.
Virginia Tech, if it turns out to be them, 87% chance for South Carolina to win that. So yeah, Stanford is definitely the biggest obstacle, and it's still a 4 out of 5 chance to win that game against Stanford.
What about UConn? That's the second team that worries me.
So where is UConn?
UConn is going to be in Seattle
Okay.
3. Yeah.
Okay.
They got to do something better with these region names.
So UConn's only got okay, sorry, I shouldn't have clicked that. They have a 44% chance to make it to the Final Four, so that's very good odds. 20% chance to make it to the title. They might actually be the second favorite. Let me run the numbers on them.
Because they played us really tough back in February. And
Yep.
they don't have Paige Beckers, obviously, and they didn't have Azzy Fudd at the time, but she came back for their conference tournament. And if she can get rolling, she was averaging like 1 million points per game at the beginning of the season before she got hurt. And they already gave us more hell than I really wanted us to have without her.
So it's given South Carolina an 84% chance on this one. Like I said, it's not going to factor in the
Fudd getting back into rounding back into shape.
It's only looking at them as the total product of what they did this year, but still 84% chance to win that one. UConn's odds themselves to win the whole thing, 23% chance to win the whole tournament. Is that right? Well, that's if they make it that far. 23% chance to make the final, or 5% chance to win the whole tournament, 23% chance to make the final. So yeah, that's probably your second favorite, but yeah, even them, it looks like nobody's laying a glove on South Carolina.
There is some concern on my part, like if Aaliyah Boston and Camila Cardoso get into foul trouble early, and Cook and the perimeter players are off because they've been streaky, and we're playing like a Stanford or UConn, which obviously that wouldn't happen until the finals. I'm concerned about that, but I mean they're undefeated. They've been so locked in all season
and played a good schedule. The way that teams have tried to beat us is to load up the paint and make us shoot and play zone. Most teams have tried to play zone against us. And even when we can't shoot, we still win those games. Even when our perimeter shot's not falling, we still win those games. And our perimeter shooting has gotten a lot better, I feel like. Bree Beal hits her shots more often than not when she's wide open. Zia Cooks started to hit her shots. When we face that zone, Camilla and Aaliyah Boston I feel like they've gotten better at that high-low thing you've got to do with your two post players to beat the zone. So I feel like the one of the years that we were really, really good when we had Herbert Harrigan, she would hit that mid-range shot and you just really couldn't play zone against us because she just nailed her shot every time she got it. And I don't know that we have that player that's that consistent of a shooter, but we've got enough to beat the zone, And like you say, everybody's played zone. Everybody's done the same thing against us. A lot of teams have stuck with us for a half because of that, but
it really playing zone to me, kind of plays to our advantage because if we're missing long range shots, then we're getting offensive rebounds.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's really hard to defensive rebound out of a zone.
Yeah,
so
at one point this
easy.
year, yeah, that's a very good point. At one point this year, we were getting 47% of possible offensive rebounds.
Like a missed shot is an assist, basically.
I know.
That's how I played. You want it, big fella? Get it off the rim.
Yeah. So, nobody has the size that we have. Nobody certainly has the skilled size that we have. The perimeter players are, to put it lightly, good enough. I mean, that's putting it very lightly. Very deep, very deep team. Raven Johnson has turned out to be fantastic. She's a lot of fun to watch, out of Atlanta, Westlake High School. She's turned out to be maybe the most fun player to watch. I mean, certainly effective ball handler and passer and all that, but just brings a lot of energy. Yeah. I don't see, Stanford's going to give us a game, but I'll be very, very surprised if we don't bring home another title.
And you mentioned the depth. So we've got 10 players averaging 10 plus minutes per game. And you mentioned the schedule too, like that's 10 plus minutes a game against your out of conference opponents of Stanford, of UConn. And then you come in conference. LSU, they played a cupcake out of conference schedule, but they're a tough team. Yeah. Made them look like they did not belong on the court. Tennessee, they're tough. The SEC is a stacked conference, and it was the out of conference schedule was even tougher than the in conference schedule. I mean, playing UConn in February.
Yeah.
So you've got all this depth that's battle tested against good teams. So that if the nightmare scenario for me comes to fruition, like they're not just out there for the first time and you're hoping, I hope a Raven Johnson can figure it out on the fly. Like you've seen it in person.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I will still say the best team that we've ever had was that COVID year team that sadly did not get to play.
Yeah.
And they were probably going to face Oregon and Sabrina Ionescu. So that not only were you getting the school's all-time best team, they were going to face a very legitimate contender. I think this is our second best team after that team, though. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. I mean, just based on like skill and experience combined, and seeing Aaliyah in person really made me appreciate her even more because she's triple teamed, double and triple teamed. Yeah. And she still is able to use angles and everything to get rebounds and score easy buckets against 2 and 3 defenders. And I was just like, man, she's going to be a monster at the next level. Cause I think she's shown like just a little bit offensively, just based on Dawn's system, which is like, we've got to limit what you do so that we can raise up everyone else. And it makes sense to do that. I think at the next level, when she's able to really show everything she can do, I think she's going to be insane because she can shoot it. It reminds me a lot of the Michael Jordan joke, how the only person at UNC who could hold him under 20 was Dean Smith.
Yeah.
Like it's the same type thing here. And just watching her in person, I don't know how you stop her.
Yeah. So I also watched us play in person against Georgia. It was the game at Georgia. But she is. And Georgia actually, for the first half, maybe the first 3 quarters, they did take her out of the game. Like she had certainly in single digits. I don't know that she even had a point the first half because they absolutely took her out of the game. But we inevitably figure it out. She inevitably gets her points. the offensive rebounding is always going to be there for her, and Cardosa just amazing at that as well. So yeah, I don't see how we can be stopped. I mean, it's not a guarantee by any means, but it's as close as you can get, I feel like.
Absolutely. All right. So
who is really quick? Asia or Aaliyah Boston? Who's the better all time?
Oh, I think I'm going to go Asia because she kind of came in and set the precedent where I think that like winning the first national title, that's going to make recruiting easier and everything else. Not that like if you win a national title, clearly you're recruiting well.
Yeah.
But she set that up so that it could be a little bit easier for Aaliyah. But that's really like that's the matchup I'm looking forward to at the next level.
That's going to be
because
Asia is the more important player
of
all time. Like you said, she started hometown girl. Started the whole thing. But as far as the act, just looking at it on the court, I really don't know. I mean, Aaliyah's like better in the post, strictly looking at post stuff. I feel like she's actually a better shooter, I think.
Really
she doesn't shoot a whole lot, but she hits her threes when she's wide open. Asia she was much better like a mid-range player. Like she could dribble and get her own shot that way sometimes, and Aaliyah doesn't really do that. But I don't know. I mean, it's a coin flip between the two. How many statues are we gonna end up building?
We're gonna need a lot. I mean, Dawn's got to get one. We'll name her AD pretty soon here, I'm sure. But yeah, Aaliyah's got to get like, that's a hell of a. I don't know how you pick because they're just both incredible.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to those games.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next level. All right. So we have got to discuss how we are scoring this bracket challenge.
All right. So the way we're going to score the bracket challenge here, we're going to use betting odds. I would not be involved any other way. So if you're familiar with betting, you're probably familiar with spreads, but I think the way to bet this tournament is to use the money line. So what that is not taking into account how much a team wins by. Do they cover the 6-point spread or whatever? We don't care about that. We're looking simply, do they win or lose? And every team has a money line attached to them. So for instance, Virginia versus Furman. Virginia's the favorite. If you wanted to win $100 on Virginia, if Virginia wins, you win 100, but you lose $250. So that's how the money lines work. You lose if you take a favorite, you lose more. That's the price to play the game, to get them without the points, right? Similarly, if you had Furman, you wanted to risk $100. That's all you would lose if Furman loses. But if they win, you win over $200. So that makes sense?
Perfect sense. And that seems to align most with how like the literal bracket works. And
yes, absolutely.
It goes without
Nobody
saying.
cares. Yep. Nobody cares that the 12 stayed within 7 points of the 5. We want the 12 to beat the 5. So yes, I agree.
Correct. So it goes without saying that since there's a dog involved, we aren't using literal dollars or even bones. This is just for entertainment purposes. And if he does win, I will give him an extra treat. So
yes. Well, that sounds good. So the picks that get made, I'm going to pick I think 6 games here. And then we're going to risk 100 units. We'll call them 100 units on each game. And If my favorite loses, I lose 200 units. If my underdog wins, I win 200. So that's the way, just the way I explained it, that'll work with our fictional units. At the end of the day, whoever has the most units is who is going to win our bracket challenge.
And that's the strategy that everyone should use moving forward. And I will allow you to rent out my dog.
So my first pick, I am taking Utah State. So Utah State is a 10 seed. However, they're the favorite. This goes back to what we said earlier. The seed, just because it's the higher number seed, that doesn't always mean that team's really the favorite. So Utah State is playing Mizzou. They're the 10 seed, but they're the favorite. So I'm going to be risking 120 units to win 100 units. Small favorite, but a favorite nonetheless. So Utah State, my first pick, minus 120.
Perfect. I've got them on my bracket.
Next pick, we're going Creighton. So Creighton is a bigger favorite. I've got them listed as a minus 220 favorite. So I'm going to have to risk 220 units to try to win 100 units. But I'm going to do that because I think Creighton is significantly better than North Carolina State. So I've got Creighton minus 220. My next pick, I'm going to go Duke over Oral Roberts. This is my biggest favorite I'm taking. I'm risking 285 units to win a mere 100 units. But that's how good I feel about them. 538 has them as an 82% chance to win, I think. The value is there. So I'm going Duke minus 285. Next pick, we're going with Tom Izzo, Michigan State. They're the 7 seed, but they're a pretty small favorite over Southern Cal, the 10 seed. They're minus 130. So I'm going Michigan State, risking 130 units to win 100. And I got 2 more here to go. I'm going to go, this is my favorite play on the board. I'm going Boise. That is another 10 seed to beat the 7 seed. Boise's actually an underdog, but a very, very small one. They're plus 110. So again, 10-7. It seems like the 7 should be a solid favorite, but really it's essentially a coin flip. Boise's only a 2-point underdog in the money line, which is what we're concerned with. They're plus 110. So we're going Boise, risking 100 units to win 110 units. And finally, I am going to buck Nate Silver in 538 for the only time this tournament. I'm going to go with Arkansas over Illinois. And let me check Arkansas's odds. Arkansas is a minus 130 favorite, so I am going to risk 130 units to win 100 with Arkansas. They're playing Illinois, and I think, having not watched them a single second this year, but having lost many dollars on them the last 2 tournaments, I am going to try to get some of that back by betting against them. So Arkansas is my final pick.
Beautiful. Well, I'm feeling pretty confident. A lot of my picks align with yours, and you're using math. Kobe might have a rough weekend, but that's okay. He's a pretty resilient little fella. I'll have to check the other brackets as well. But yeah, so this is what we're going to try to do every week. It will come out on this extra special day. If something super important happens in the sports news world, and I feel like I need to do a separate episode on that, that will be released on the usual Monday. But for now, we're just going to enjoy March Madness and do this extra special day. And really, I mean, the COVID year, you talked about it earlier. When we didn't get the tournament that year, I told myself, if we ever got it again, I was going to enjoy the tournament to the fullest. Absolutely. From now on. So that's what I want to focus on doing. And I appreciate you for helping me do that, dear friend.
Thank you for having me.
All right, this has been another episode of Beyond the Arc with Brandon Silvers. I will catch y'all next week. See you then.